Hello, I'm Charlie, the Director of Technical Support at U.S. Water Systems. Today we're going to be talking about the U.S. Water System Prelude and Fusion Professional Water Softeners. We will be discussing preparation, installation, setup, and startup of both models. The U.S. Water Systems Prelude and Fusion Water Softeners have a few differences. The Prelude series uses a standard tank and distributor and 8% cross-linked resin, whereas the Fusion Professional series uses a state-of-the-art Vortec tank and 10% cross-linked resin. Other than those differences, both models are virtually the same. This video will apply to both models for the sole purpose of installation, setup, and startup. The first thing we need to discuss will be preparation. First of all, you need to decide on a location for the new water softener. This will depend on the size of the softener you need. The target location will need to be on a level surface as close to the incoming water line as possible. Outside spigots and irrigation systems should be plumbed into the water system prior to the water softener. Another thing to consider is the location of the salt tank. The salt tank can be installed next to the softener or in a remote location. If a remote location is selected, such as a garage, the distance between the salt tank and the softener should not exceed 25 feet. If a remote location is used, you will need to purchase additional 3/8 tubing. This tubing can be found at uswatersystems.com under the Installation, Parts, and Fittings category. The softener should be placed in an area that is not going to freeze in the winter. If you live in a warm region and your unit is installed outside, a rain cover should be purchased to protect the unit. Your softener needs to be close to a 110-volt electrical outlet and should be protected with a surge protector if possible, especially in areas that are prone to power outages or lightning strikes. The softener operating frequency is rated at 50 to 60 Hz, and a typical 110-volt 15-amp circuit is sufficient. Do not use an extension cord if it can be avoided. The new water softener will require a drain for regeneration. This drain can be in the floor or overhead. Your new softener will drain with pressure, so the drain can be above the unit by about 10 feet. The drain that is selected should be an 1.5-inch pipe or larger. In some areas, the local code requires an air gap connection for the drain. The air gap fittings can be found at uswatersystems.com under water softeners. The air gap fittings are available in 1.5 or 2-inch. There should be a P-trap installed on the drain, and the standpipe should be around 18 inches or more. If the drain is overhead and 18 inches cannot be achieved, then try to get the standpipe as close to the next level subfloor as possible. When the aforementioned preparation steps have been confirmed, you can move to the next step, which is to verify the parameters of your water system. The first and most important thing to know is the levels of contaminants in the water source for your home. Typically, a municipal source or city water source will have a standard water quality and will not require further testing. Some municipalities will provide a water report on request. If you cannot get a water report from your municipality, you can get a hardness test kit from uswatersystems.com. For well water applications, water testing should be done to determine if the water softener alone will provide sufficient treatment to produce good water. You can get a water test through uswatersystems.com. You will need to know the hardness level to determine the proper settings, which will be discussed later in this video. The next thing to verify is the flow rate of your water supply system. This can be determined using a stopwatch and a bucket. You can monitor how many seconds it takes to fill a 5-gallon bucket and divide 60 by the number of seconds you counted. Multiply that figure by 5 to get your gallon per minute, or GPM. If you're on a well, you may have this information available in your well pump manual. The next thing you will need to know is the water system pressure. Typically, most water supply systems will operate at 40 to 60 psi. You can verify this with a pressure gauge. Sometimes there is a gauge on the pressure tank for well water systems. If you don't have a gauge available, we have a pressure gauge at uswatersystems.com that attaches to a garden hose water spigot. On municipal water sources, the pressure will usually be between 40 and 60 psi. It is important that the pressure does not exceed 80 psi. If your system is operating at a pressure above 60 psi, a pressure reducing valve, or a PRV, may need to be installed to regulate the pressure. The final parameter to determine is if there will be downtime available for regeneration. Typically in a residential setting, the softener can regenerate at 2 a.m. If you need 24 hours of soft water, you may want to go with a twin alternating softener system, which will be discussed briefly in this video series. The next step is to determine the size of the water softener you will need. U.S. Water Systems will determine the size of your system by using the amount of bathrooms and people in your home and the parameters of your water. You will need an adequate backwash flow rate to regenerate these systems. The hardness level will also determine the size and style of the system. If you need 24 hours of soft water, you will need a twin alternating system. Our Synergy model is a twin alternating model. If you have very high hardness levels but a low flow rate, you may need to go with a twin alternating system to ensure that you will have soft water during a regular day. The main reason for this is with a low flow rate, an oversized softener may not be backwashed properly and will not be regenerated efficiently. If you are unsure what water system will be right for you, contact one of our water specialists for help. Once all the previous information has been collected, it is time to make the purchase. There are several things to consider before the purchase is made. The first thing is the connector type you will need. This is determined by the pipe size and type. U.S. Water Systems offers several different connectors for the Prelude and Fusion water softener. Next, you will need to know the size and type of the softener you will need. You will use previously collected information to determine this. If you are on a municipal water source, you may want to remove chlorine. If that is the case, U.S. Water Systems has a hybrid water softener with carbon for chlorine removal. These systems are called Fusion Hybrid Water Softeners. They are also offered in twin alternating series, and it's called the Synergy model. The next thing to consider is the drain line. Your new softener does not come with drain line. You will need to determine the length of your drain line and order it with your water softener purchase. Another product that is good to have is food-grade silicone grease. You can find this at uswatersystems.com. This will conclude what you will need to do prior to making the purchase. Once you receive your equipment, you will proceed with the next video in this series.